Welcome back to C++ with Miyoshi. We're going to talk today about arguments inside a function. So when you have a function, and you have, so I have int get something, and if you tuned in for the one about returns, you notice this is the same function. I have here inside my parentheses my argument. I have one argument in this case. If I have more than one argument, I want to separate them by commas, remembering to put what each data type is. So I have int arg. And then I do something a little different than I did last time. I have arg is assigned the value arg times 3. And then I return arg. So it should give me the same results with the same inputs. And indeed it does. I have int arg 6. So I have 6 and then I'm going to send 6 over to here. Then I'm going to do 6 times 3 is 18. Put that in arg and then I'm going to send arg back. Back here. So this guy is going to get replaced by 16 or 18 and that's going to get put into my ants. Now, when I print that out, ants, as we would expect, would get an 18, and arg in this case would get printed out, and that should give us a 6. Now, that's what we call passing by value. Again, and even if I put a 6 in here, if I change this guy instead, and instead of using arg, if I put a 6 there, instead of arg, I would still get the same thing, and I could do that. And that's what's called passing by value. Again, notice, it's just int arg, and it just says anything that's an integer can go in there, including a literal. In other words, it's to put in a 6 there. Now, if I want to change that just a little bit, let's change this just slightly, and we'll put an ampersand in there. So now I have int ampersand arg. This tells me that this is what's called passing by reference. In the pass by value, the one before that without the ampersand, these arg and this arg, these two different args live in two different memory locations. As soon as I put the ampersand in there, that tells me I'm going to pass this guy by reference. So this argument now doesn't live in a different memory location. It lives in the same exact memory location as the arg down here. It doesn't even matter if they're the same name. If I could change this guy to AR and AR all the way down here, they don't have the same name, but they are still the same memory location. So now when I do this, if I have arg is 6 and I pass arg to my variable or to my function, now when I call the function and pass it in there, now I'm still going to get r times 3, which is 6 times 3 is 18, and now 18 is an r, and 18 is an r, and 18 gets passed back here, and it gets stuck into ants. Well, this time when I print it out, ants is indeed going to be 18, but arg will no longer be 6. And the reason why is because they live in the same memory location. So r got transferred to 18. So now arg, which they live in the same memory location, is going to also be 18. So this case, the first case without the ampersand, they'll get printed out 18 and 6. And the second time, when I print it with the sending it by reference, I'm going to get different things. I actually get 18 and 18. So passing by value and passing by reference, they're very useful, very similar, but quite different results depending on what we do inside of our function. The other thing that you can't do is I can no longer, if I pass by value, I can no longer stick a 6 in there. I must have a variable in there because there's no pointer to a string literal, or to a integer literal in that case. So I may need to make sure I can't pass a value in there, but I can pass any integer variable that I want. Okay, so the same kind of thing happens with, well, it's not the same, but it's a similar thing happens when I do character arrays. If I want to send, I have here a void function, and notice one thing I did here on this function, I put the return there just to remind, or just to show you that if I have a void function, I can have a return, but it can't have a value. So I can't have a return 0, return 1, return anything. It just has to be a return with a semicolon after it. But this character function, what it's going to do is I'm going to take an output character array and an input character array, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to swap just one character. So you may recall that you can address individual items in a character array just like they were single characters, and so that way my assignment works. So I'm going to have here, I'm just going to take my out 0, so whatever out was in the beginning, I'll stick that into temp, and then I'll take whatever's in the 0th character, my first character in there, and I'll stick it into out 0, and then I'll take my temp and stick it back into N0. So what that does is it just swaps the first character. And if we look at the memory locations over here that I showed you, all it's doing is taking my A and sticking it into X, and taking the X and sticking it into where the A was. So then I should have something, I should have A, Y, Z, and X, B, C when I'm done. So let's look at the way the function gets called. Here I have char in ABC, and I have char out XYZ. That's where it gets assigned. And then I run my swap char. Again, this is a void function, so I don't need to give it I don't have an assignment statement in front of it. I just call my function out and in. And here's where it always, when you send a character, it always is passed by reference. Okay, if I have a single character, it's different. I could pass it by value, but here with a character array, I'm passing these guys by reference, which means I have, no matter what these guys are called up there, they will still be the same memory location that they were in my main. So whatever happens here, happens here. So when I swap these guys, and I swap A and X, A gets in there, and X gets in there, with a little bit of temp there, with help from my temp, and they get swapped. And now when I output them out to the screen, it's going to have X, B, C, because that's my in, and my A, Y, Z, which is my out. So, passing by reference. Here I have a char star out, char star in. That just makes it it's easy reference to character array. We know that's a character array. Here with the ampersand, that's the address of, that's what that's called, the address of operator, and that just tells me I'm passing by value as well. So, and without that guy, that's just passing by reference. When I pass by reference, whatever happens to R doesn't happen back here to arg, and if I pass by value, whatever happens to R happens back here to arg as well. So, remember, they share the same memory locations when they're passed by reference, and they don't when they're passed by value. So hopefully this clears things up a little bit and helps you understand a little bit about passing arguments back and forth to and from functions. Remember, if you pass something by value, you don't pass it back. It never gets changed. And a little side note, if you are programming in Java rather than C++, everything gets passed by value, and that's a little bit complicated. We won't get into that because again, we're just practicing C++ here. So anyway, hopefully this clears things up, or hopefully helps you out when you pass arguments back and forth, but like I said, between functions. And tune in again next time for more C++ Miyoshi. Thanks for tuning in.